Welcome to a look back at week 5 at this 16th season of Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Has loyalty ever gotten you in trouble? Have you ever stuck with a player longer in hindsight than you really should have? Maybe it was a high draft pick, maybe even your first round, and for whatever reason, they just weren't producing as expected. Maybe it was injury after injury or just simply underperforming. Have you ever held on to a player longer than you should have, knowing that as soon as you drop them, the next team to pick them up, that was probably going to be their star player that pushes them through to the championship, right? The best player is the guy that you just dropped. Sometimes we can hold on to somebody just a little bit too long, and it may or may not tank our season necessarily, but it certainly puts a kink in having a successful season. So are you somebody who tends to be overly loyal to certain players, just not wanting to let them go because you're sure they're going to turn that corner? Or are you more cutthroat? What have you done for me lately? Would you have dropped Mark Andrews after his first 0-point game? After his second 0-point game? You'll see he's still on my bench. So obviously I have some loyalty concerns, issues. Sometimes you can be too loyal. Is that how you tend to be? Well, let's take a look back at our the scores for the week. It was a topsy-turvy week here at Blood, Sweat, and Beers. A lot of scores that we just would not have expected. And I've got some new numbers to share. So let's look back. First, I'll take a look at your commish against Skibbity. This was one that was not necessarily completely out of the realm of possible since, as we'll see later, your commish is still the last place scoring team, so it kind of makes sense. What I liked about this is that there were points on the bench for commish, so the talent's there. It really just becomes a front office issue, a little sketchy there on some of the decision making. Skibbity comes in, ties everything up at the top of the West. We'll take a look at the divisions and the standings here in just a little bit. But what I liked about that is that the Washington defense essentially won the game for Aaron. That was his highest scoring position. You're welcome. Now, as we've got a couple extra numbers here to take a look at, let's look at highest potential score. So we'll see, obviously, Commish left a ton of points on the bench. And Skibbity, Aaron left a few points on the bench. But this leads us into our pop. Our percentage of perfection. I've mentioned it in years past when a player, or when one of you, I should say, lines up, has the perfect lineup, right? The highest scoring lineup you could have had for that week. Well, we can put a number to that. It's the pop. Percentage of perfection. How close to your perfect lineup did you get? And as we reveal the numbers for the first game, Commish was painfully off, 67% to the best possible. It helps when two guys have monster games. It throws that number off, but Aaron came in at 93, a little over 93% to perfection to his perfect lineup. So once you're over 90%, you're maximizing it pretty well. Not a lot you can do beyond that. So take a look at our next one, puzzles versus read option. Another one where really thought that read option had dialed it in, had it figured out, but he's looking more like week 1 read option than week 2, 3, 4. We'll see if he's roller coaster all week, all year, or if it's just an off week. What I liked about this was when you look at puzzles and you look at his IR, he's basically stocking up on Miami, hoping that they come back and are the Miami of past. He's got half the starting lineup in various places on his roster, so should be interesting. What were the highest potential scores? Not too far off, because then as you look at their pop, Puzzles is a little bit lower. He was not 85%, but read option at 94%. He did about the best he could, which means he really didn't have a shot to win. So it didn't really matter what he did. Our next score to look at, we've got Pet Detectives and Gloop. Like was mentioned, somebody was going to walk away with a win. We were pretty sure, unless they somehow tied, which would have been remarkably, well, it would have been remarkable, but remarkably improbable. Gloop really put a stamp on this one. 173 points, fantastic, high score of the week. And as you can see by the potential high score, he could have done just a little bit better than that. Could have just broken 190. But even as we see that, still with 90% of the best possible. Pet Detectives was a little low at 80%, but frankly, it wouldn't have mattered. At 144, he could have had the best and still would have lost to Gloop at what he did actually start. So what I like about this one is the fact that Pet Detectives is still the number 9 scoring team, but winless, even though he hasn't scored the least. I also like the fact that Gloop is stashing half of the Kansas City Chief offense on his roster. So maybe he knows something's going to happen there. I don't know. Our next score, Booger Pickers. Ooh, just gross. Booger Picker Club and Poncho. This was the closest game. This was the only one that actually came down to Monday night. It was the only game that mattered on Monday night. But Booger Pickers just inching out, just held on enough to get the win on that one and muddy up the top of the East Division. But as you see the numbers, Poncho left quite a few points on the bench. A couple of options, couple of different choices he could have made. Tank Bigsby. You put him in, you win. I mean, there's a couple different things, but Booger Pickers at 96.1%, tied for closest to a perfect lineup, highest pop of the week. John still did well, 84%. Anything at that point was good, but obviously that meant he left some points on the board. Drops to 1 and 4. Our last one, Slappypotamus and Jersey Birds. Now, this was definitely uncharacteristic for Jersey Birds. Number 1 scoring team coming into the week and drops less than 125. So we weren't expecting that. And as you even look at the potential high scores, Slappypotamus had a few points left on the bench. Jersey Birds had close to 20 left on the bench. It wouldn't have mattered, right? 143 still wouldn't have been enough. Still would have been 20 points short. So not much he could have done. You look at the pops there. Slappy's tied for the best pop of the week at 96.1% of a perfect lineup, and Jersey Birds just under 87. So as you look at those numbers back, everybody was an A or a B, except for your commish, who comes in at a high D. We'll give him a D+, but still absolutely the reason why he lost this week. So we don't like that. But back at Slappy and Jersey Birds, what I do like about this is that Lamar has his best week of the year, and that's really the only reason why. Well, DJ Moore was between the two of them. Really, the only reason why Slappypotamus wins. Look for Jersey Birds to rebound next week. See what he can do. All right, as we take a look at our standings, we are just mucking about. We made this whole thing just nasty and ugly. No clear front runners as much as we had. It felt like maybe last week. So 3-way ties. It comes down to tie breaks for the number 1 teams on both sides in both divisions. Looks like the East, every team is just about 1 game better than every team in the West. But we'll see how this all shakes out. Still early in the season. What I like about this, in the West, somehow your commish still has the best playoff percentage, the best chance to make the playoffs of any team in the West, despite being the last place scoring team in the whole division and in the whole league. So I don't know. Maybe I'll start scoring some points. Maybe Watson Wilson knows something that none of the rest of us, including myself, know. Let's look at the stats. As we would expect, Jersey Birds is still, by a long shot, our number one scoring team. Slipped a little bit this week, but obviously he's been scoring enough points that he's holding on to that by 88 points. He's just kind of blowing everybody else away at this point, or I guess to the number two team, read option. But now Booger Pickers is only about 30 points, 29 points behind. So he's not blowing everybody away, but the only two teams over 700 on the season sitting right there. We'll see how the points shake out, and if that even matters. As Pancho knows, it doesn't always, so we'll have to see. All right, well, John, stay safe, stay dry. We hope that everything will be nice and cleared up, as you said, by kickoff Thursday night, and then that way you and all the rest of us can enjoy Week 6.